we continue on with our journey to the top of the tower? Is it like is that what the adventure is?
I don't think that's what the adventure is.
No, you're climbing the Medivh's
Is it a
mansion.
tower?
No, it's a tower, right? It's
It's a
it's
tower.
it's like
See, I didn't even
mansion
know it was a
tower.
tower. I thought it was just like a mansion.
I don't know. Like no, the whole entire premise, like this time, it's not from top down. It's from the bottom up. So you're climbing the tower.
Wait, when was it from top down?
Always, since always.
I'm confused. What's from top down?
The adventure, how you play it.
Huh? Which
Okay,
adventure are you talking
no,
about?
no, no. The solo adventure. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
for example, in Naxxramas, right?
Uh huh.
The first wing is at the very top, and then the
Oh, is the
second
first
wing.
wing at the bottom?
Yeah, the first wing is at the bottom this time.
I've clearly not played this, but clearly not paid attention to playing this to playing this expansion.
Yeah, you clearly have not. It's from the bottom this time, and they did it deliberately, so it makes it feel as if you're climbing to the top of the tower. I
I
think.
see. I see. Well, they didn't
Yeah.
do it for Blackrock Mountain because isn't that like actually about climbing up a mountain?
No, I don't think they did. No, I think this is the first time that they're doing bottom up.
Oh, trying to find consistency with Blizzard. Okay, so Karazhan's been out for like a while now. It's been out for a week and a half. We have two wings out, and now it's pretty clear where the meta kind of is. Because, like we said before, it's more about OG card like offering bonus being destroyed than it is about the new cards coming in. Like, how many new cards do you on average see per run, whether from your deck or your opponent's deck?
This seems like a trick question.
The answer's like two or three. At least that's what I've been experiencing.
All right, not a trick question. Go on, sir.
Okay, it's called the Karazhan meta, but really it's like a nothing meta. It's the absence of any expansion meta. And it will be a Karazhan meta by the end of the wing release and when the offering bonus kicks in, hopefully. But until then, we're really playing in this like weird neutral zone, which is a good time to kind of reevaluate all of our like standing assumptions about the game, right? Like if you
Yeah.
learn how to play the game or you got really good at the game in OG and not in like League of Explorers or TGT, well, your playstyle is now wrong because you haven't played correctly before. You've played to the OG meta and you've had success with that, and now it's time to change. If you had been playing in like TGT or LOE or before that, you may have an idea, if you remember back then, about how the meta was and how you're supposed to play and be able to adjust a little better. But the bottom line is you need to adjust, and so we have also adjusted. The Lightforge tier list at thelightforge.com. The update is out. We have pushed up the two drops. We've made a lot of other changes. There are a lot of other changes still coming. It is definitely not done, but we got the big things out there. The bottom is still a little bit messy. But one of the things that we're going to push out, if not this week, then next week, and you can mentally make the adjustment, is all the smaller cards are going to be more useful, and all the bigger cards are going to be less useful in this kind of meta compared to OG, which is where we were rating cards before.
Size doesn't matter, guys, or it matters in a negative way.
Exactly. Smaller is better, assuming you have equal like quality kinds of cards, right? And what do I mean by smaller? I don't mean like two drops. We all know we need two drops. I mean like 1/1s for one mana. I mean like Tiny Fin. How good is a Tiny Fin? I think you're going to be shocked at how much we're raising Tiny Fin on the tier list whenever this raise happens. And it's because at the end of the day, it is about tempo. And one extra damage on the board is either going to deal that extra damage or it's going to be eaten by your opponent's minions, and that takes away one of their attacks, which saves your face and allows you to take the initiative on the board. Kind of how something like a shield bearer works, right?
Exactly, and this is what Arena is all about now: the shield bearers and tiny fins.
Shield bearer Tiny Fin meta coming up. That's not a prediction. That's like just what I have been seeing. Because what's the defining feature of Karazhan? Like, what do you notice the most right now that's different than OG? Like outside of specific cards.
Arcanosmith.
You, I, I don't believe that you've noticed any Arcanosmiths.
Well, okay, all right. Lack of taunts is one thing, and it's also hard to get twos now.
It's
So,
really hard to get twos. No one's curving out. No one has ones. No one has twos. People barely have threes. So what happens when your opponent's deck, and when I say opponent's deck, I mean like really everyone's deck, what happens if everyone's decks are so awkward and they miss curve turns and they don't have taunts and they don't have board clears and they don't have removals?
go to their face.
Yeah, you can just overrun them. Whoever gets stuff out first will overrun the other person because the other person can't catch up without either a good curve in which they've never fallen behind to begin with, board clears, in which it helps them catch up, but they don't have board clears because, you know, how many board clears are there in this game at this point? Or taunts. Like, what is a Sunwalker if you have a bunch of small things on the board? It's a 3-for-1 board clear, right? Because it's going to take 3 hits to kill the Sunwalker. You've effectively played like a lame version of like a 6 mana board clear that can be removed by like an Assassinate. But if your opponent doesn't have the Assassinate, which they probably won't because there's not that many like removals in the game anymore either, you have a board clear. So the big taunts are like semi board clears. Board clears are actual board clears, and then actually curving out is the other way. Well, we've gotten rid of the taunts from OG. We've been diluting the pool of removals like all the frickin' time, and that's just gonna get more and more diluted. And now we don't even have 2-drops or 1-drops to like sustain us. So everybody you face, generally speaking, is going to be engaged in this weird like semi-value game where like they understand everyone's not gonna curve out a little bit. And that's kind of what we did with OG. But the reason we did that with OG is because there were so many taunts that were effective board clears if you didn't have hard removals, and so you couldn't go fast. Now you can. Now the taunts are gone. And so now, if you curve out, if you have the 1-drops and the 2-drops and the 3-drops, your opponent can't do much about it. Your opponent will just get overrun, even the good decks. And that's what I'm stressing here. Because the good decks probably didn't get to where they are by playing this game of getting on the board super early and pushing face. The good decks you see at like 10, 11, 12 wins, they probably got there by just having more big stuff than their opponents because everyone's still in the OG mentality when drafting decks. Everyone's still in the OG mentality when playing decks. So the easy way right now to counter the meta is just to go really, really freaking fast. Like, 1-drops? Wonderful. What's a 2-1 worth? Almost as good as a 2-drop. Why? Who cares if you get pinged, right? Mages are everywhere in the meta. But so what if you get pinged? If you get pinged, they've spent 2 mana, you spent 1, you're winning, right? If they like dagger up, okay, fine, you're not winning tempo-wise, but in order for them to get the tempo back, they've already taken 2 damage, and they'll take more damage in their next hit, right? And you're pushing face anyway, so it's not that big of a loss. That's my I guess more than 2 cents, maybe like 10 cents on how to win in Karazhan right now.
Yeah, that's enough, man. That'll get you something from the vending machine, definitely. I think it's a pretty good strategy, and now is a good time to sort of take advantage, right? Because we're in almost a new meta, this transitional meta that'll only last for what, 2 more weeks approximately. It don't last for about 2 more weeks, and then the offering bonus kicks in. But
I don't think when the offering bonus kicks in, it's going to be that different of a meta.
No. Big picture wise, in terms of like, what is the offering bonus going to give people back Bog Creepers and Cyclotrons?
Right, no, exactly.
But, you still have to adjust, right? You still have to adjust. Right now, though, you can sort of feel a little bit safer not having to worry about the offering bonus of these new cards, right? You don't have to, let's say this week, worry that, Warriors have an offering bonus to Fool's Bane, so they have an increased chance of having it, like on turn 5, right?
Yeah, but how do you worry about that? It's Fool's Bane.
It's
not much you can do about it.
Well, like, let's say you, instead of playing 2 small things, you could play like 1 bigger thing.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Right?
That's true. But you're probably going to do that anyway against a warrior.
You're probably going to do that anyways, but extra consideration there.
Yeah, because this is assuming your big thing is like more than 5 health too, because otherwise you're weak to Arcanite Reaper, which is just offered just as much and probably taken nearly just as much as Fool's Bane.
Right, they're both good weapons.
And if you have something that's 6 health or more on turn 5, you're probably going to play that anyway instead of the 2 small things. So right. I don't know that it's actually going to change the way you play with this offering bonus or no offering bonus thing. But it's Karazhan, right? The cards are normal. They're not special. Blizzard, I don't know if I want to call it lazy, but I was definitely expecting more from this expansion in terms of creativity, and they just sprinkled a little in there, right? There wasn't really too much going on. So we're going to be in a meta that's going to look very similar to what it is right now. You're going to get, like, class balance is going to change, but that aside, in terms of what you actually see and when you're playing and how the game feels, I think it's going to be very similar to what it is right now, even after the off-rate bonus kicks in.
Yeah, yeah. The style will definitely not change that much, big picture. But I'm just pretty excited to get some new cards, honestly. And
Yeah, new cards are always better than no new cards, even if they're like not terribly special new cards. They're at least new. They have their own little wrinkle. You're going to see cat tricks in the game now.
yeah, oh, cat tricks. That's the thing. Every time they add a new secret, even if no, sorry, especially if it's one that's not so great, I'm just like, I gotta check things off more, right? Secrets are always I don't like the skill, quote unquote, that it introduces into the game because
What
it's just
skill? You just use Hearthstone Deck Tracker and it does it for you. That's like the biggest hack that like Blizzard doesn't seem to care about. Like, so if you guys don't know, Hearthstone Deck Tracker like tracks secrets for you, and they're pretty accurate about it. Like 95% of the times they won't like bug out. And so it like literally tells you what secrets you've already checked for without you having to like mark anything off or something.
Right, right. Well, the skill is still ordering, right?
Right. The skill is still ordering. I'm not saying there's no skill to it, but like you don't have to like remember it anymore. Like,
No, you don't have to
once you
remember
do
it
something,
anymore.
it like just tells you.
I've always thought remembering was the easiest part. It's the ordering that's hard. But like what
You
secrets
lucky people with your functional brains.
it just forces you to go down a checklist. You're like, okay, let's check this off first. Let's check that off second. And then I don't love the skill that it introduced into the game. But anyways.
Yeah. So I just thought we'd start off with a whole, here's Karazhan. This is what you do to beat Karazhan, right? Because OG happened, and we started off when we said like, oh, things are going slow. There are gonna be so many taunts, all this stuff, and we were right on like every account. And then like 2 weeks in, I'm like, I guess we haven't really told people how to win. Like,
no,
we've described the meta very accurately and very well. We've given them like when to pick like which card, but like we haven't told them how to win. And so that's what we're focusing on, like aggro control and snowball type decks that you can like work out. So I figured we'll just start off right off the bat with this. The way you win in Karazhan is to go curve faster than your opponent. Curve, play tempo cards, push face. That's how you win in Karazhan. Because people are playing slow, they're trading, they're still in the OG mindset, and they do not have the tools, either in terms of the taunts, in terms of the board clears, or in terms of actually being able to curve out as well.
I think one thing to note is this expansion might be, if not the worst, like it's definitely one of the worst in terms of giving all classes removals, right?
Yeah, well, okay, so Rogue gets one, Warrior gets one, Mage gets one.
Shaman gets a rare AoE.
One.
Rare AoE. Mage gets one, like a removal that's 7 mana, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about like.
Okay, the Paladin has a buff. That's kind of like a removal.
Sure, but like you're not getting like Stormcrack. You're not getting any of these small removals, and you're not getting these more sort of powerful AoEs, right?
Yeah. There's definitely no like big power removal in this game outside of the Mage and the Warrior.
If you look at sort of the conditions that these that the removals in this expansion require, like Firelines Portal requires turn 7. Maelstrom Portal is it's like it's just a 1 damage clear, which is great, but it's still just
it's 2 damage clear every time.
Every single time, right?
Every time.
Yeah, like this expansion especially really does not give if you add it all up, the classes like the ability to have initiative with spells. They really want you to play with minions and sort of buff your beasts, dragons, and murlocs on the board, right?
Yep.
So
it's a zoo deck. It's a zoo expansion. And that's following off the OG, which is kind of the same mentality, right? And OG had more removals than this expansion did. But OG had the same mentality, right? Be on the board, do taunts, stop the face damage, play the actual freaking game we made. Well, they took away the OG version of playing the game, and now they're just trying to strengthen your weird synergies and stuff. But you can get around it, right? You get around it by hitting face. This expansion is all about smorking. There's not a lot of smorking cards, but the way to beat the meta is to smork. Everyone else won't be doing this. This will be like super secret strategy. And by super secret strategy, I mean, if you think about it, you come to the same conclusion, but people aren't thinking about it in this way. They're just kind of like playing. And so there's still some residual OG effect. And if you're really just playing and you're picking what you think the most powerful cards are, you're going to end up with a pretty slow deck that doesn't curve out.
Yeah.
So when those decks all go up against each other, the ones with the best cards and like, the better players, they win out. But you can just like, what good is a good player when they can't play cards, right? Like if they're dropping their big things every turn and you're playing 2 cards and hitting their face, I don't care how good they are. They're not going to be able to affect the game, and you're going to be able to affect the game. And the person who can affect the game has a higher chance of winning, as we know from Rogue versus Priest.
The eternal struggle versus Priest.
One class who can do anything from any position, and one class who can do pretty much nothing from any position until they've already won the game.
Yeah, fantastic. It's a great example.
All right.
Of it.
Okay, we don't have a question from the GOAT today, but I just want to give a shout out to our patrons. We've been like super behind on like actually updating stuff and like properly like thanking people. We will do that. I have to like get my computer upgraded, and there's this Karazhan release. We may like do more shout outs next month or something. But let's go on to the Karazhan card preview week 3. Just know we haven't forgotten about you, Patreons. We are so freaking far behind because I'm like updating pretty much every single card in this tier list. All right. Wing 3.
Where are we starting?
Where are we starting? Let's start with what this wing is going to be known for. Zubats.
Zubat. All right. So, see, okay. Do you have the card art pulled up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when I first looked at it, I was confused because I didn't see the robot in the middle. Okay. I just saw the dragon, the bear in the back, the little boar, and the tiger. I was like, is it just some Frankenstein of these things? I literally did not see the thing in the middle, and I thought it was like a Frankenstein combination of these creatures together. And then I felt really bad once I saw that it was an actual.
So for our listeners, the picture for Zubat has a baby dragon, a baby tiger, a baby boar, and a baby bear, and then there's a machine in the middle. The card itself is 3 mana, 3/3 mech. Battlecry, give a random friendly beast, dragon, and Murloc +1/+1. Do you see something wrong with this picture, Merps?
Well, I mean, look, Blizzard hates Murlocs.
I mean, it's like Blizzard telling you, look, you're not going to be able to buff that Murloc. Don't even try.
You're going to be able to buff 3 beasts, though.
You may be able to get a dragon. You'll probably be able to get a beast. But that Murloc, let's just don't think about it.
Okay, so you got like baby Onyxia or something. You got baby Huffer. You got baby Misha, right? And you have a baby Stranglethorn Tiger or something.
Yep.
And the Murloc
Tiger's so adorable.
I know. It's a pretty cute card.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, let's just talk about the impact of this card.
All right, there's going to be very little impact.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to see it, because it's a Karazhan card.
Yeah, all right. So look, right now, because of the lack of offering bonus, you're not going to see it a lot. 3 mana, 3/3 minions are not good, right? Like they are understated, and we've talked about this before. 3 drops are just also not very good because they're too small to be of impact, but it's not, you don't need them as much as you need like 2 drops, right? The game begins on turn 2. So 3 drops end up being like the smallest card that has very, that's not on an important turn. It makes your mana awkward. And man, that battle cry, it seems like it gives a lot of stuff, stats, but how many like dragons are you going to have per deck, right? 1? What's the exact number? You know the numbers for these things.
Less than 1.
Less than 1. Got it.
Not 1.
Right, and then for Beast and Murloc, you're really not getting many of them. So when it
Well,
hits,
you're gonna get like 3 beasts in a deck.
yeah,
Beasts
so
are
you get
everywhere. Like,
right,
you
right,
just accidentally pick up some beasts. You're not gonna get Murlocs.
right. So you might get like one Murloc, and
Mm, you're
you can
probably
get
gonna
the
get
ability
one
off,
dragon
but
slash Murloc. That's probably more what it's like.
yeah, it's fair. Yeah, you don't have like the offering bonus to Biofin Tidehunter or something.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
don't have it for the Seer. There's not like good dragons coming in. There's not good Murlocs coming in.
yeah. But what Zubat and another card that we're going to be reviewing later on, what they do is, I mean, you got to think twice about leaving a beast up for any class, right? Or a dragon, or a Murloc, or something. Especially if the buff can potentially be game swing, like
No,
create a
no.
huge
What are
swing.
you suggesting? You're suggesting we play around
Oh,
Zubat?
dude, I think that like it
What?
makes people think twice. It's not a good like a great
No, no.
card.
It
I
makes
think it makes
people
people
who
think
have too much
twice.
stuff to think about think twice. It makes normal people totally ignore the fact that this card exists. If you get beat by a Zubat because the Zubat buffed a bunch of stuff on the board, just lose. Like, it's fine. It's better than like actually having to like think about this card and trying to play around this card because that'll make you do like way worse things.
All right, guys. If you have the brain capacity to think about this card,
No,
then think about this card.
there are a million better things for you to spend that time thinking about than this card. And if you do, you should pretty much, like, one, you can't get a read for it. There's no way you can get a read for this card. And two, without a read,
Oh yeah,
there's
of
no way
course.
you should ever play around this card. There is no situation in which you would play around Zubat.
I mean, you play around it the same way that you play around like a Shattered Sun, right?
I'm
Or
not saying
a
you
Dark
can't
Iron
play
Fortress.
around it, I'm saying you wouldn't. Because you'd barely play around a Shattered Sun. You can Shattered Sun
No,
any hand, it gets picked way more often.
I think it's a little bit like I don't agree that it's right to talking like that absolute to everyone. It's like just don't play around it. Period. Like just don't think about it.
Zubat, it's gonna be an under 50 rated card that's barely a 3-drop. Like, people aren't going to pick it. It's going to be so infrequently seen. You don't play around this. And the
We're
corollary
still
to
gonna
it,
pick it. It's not like look. It's not like it's you know freaking 20 or 30 rated card. You know?
yeah, it's not. They're going to pick it, but it's like you're going to see one of these every like 4 opponents, maybe 6 opponents. And then they have to like actually have it in their hand at some point in the game, which is about half the time. So, like, once every like 8 to 12 games, you'll see this card. And who knows if it'll hit anything. Like, you don't play around that. That's not something you play around. You know, back in the day when you always played around Shattered Sun Cleric, that's because there was more, on average, more than one Shattered Sun Cleric per deck. That's because it was classic. There were cards. Yeah, there's no way you. And Shattered Sun Cleric's a lot better than this card, so it gets taken more frequently. You don't play around Zubat.
Oh, and guys, always remember that it just gives a random like if you have 2 beasts, it doesn't buff both beasts.
Right. It only buffs one of the tiger, the boar, and the bear. The other ones can just be sad.
So, like, how many times are you actually going to get a beast and a dragon, or a beast and a Murloc, right? Probably not that often. Anyways.
Yep. Okay, so let's go to the other one while we're at it. Menagerie Magician, 5 mana, 4/4. Battlecry, give a random friendly beast, dragon, and Murloc, +2/+2. So, you know, worse.
No. You're talking about the Menagerie Magician.
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
I thought you said Warden. Never mind.
No, I said Magician.
Okay.
Because I don't, like, Warden's not even a card in my, like, a word in my head that I know what it means, so I would never say it.
I'm just putting words into your mouth. Go on.
Yeah, you're putting weird words in my mouth, too. It's 5 mana, 4/4, so it's a lot worse than a 3 mana, 3/3. And then again, like we said, right, the Battlecry won't trigger that often. And this one, the Battlecry, like, if it triggers, makes it kind of like that 3 mana, 3/3. So it's just worse. It's one of those things where you want the synergy deck where you have a lot of beasts, a lot of dragons, a lot of Murlocs, right? But you're not going to get that in the arena.
And look, those decks are probably not going to be great in the arena anyways. Because
well,
beasts by themselves, unless your class that capitalizes
they're
on
okay.
them, they're okay, right?
Dragons are on the good side. Murlocs are on the bad side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're just really counting on your Menagerie Magicians and Zubats to carry you to victory, which is
Which you won't get because it's not the Karazhan meta. There are no Karazhan cards. That's like the first thing about the Karazhan meta that we should get comfortable with.
Yeah. But yeah, Menagerie Magician is, man, it's even more of like it takes more mana, right? So it takes more of your resources. And if you look at the stats, yeah, it pumps more into the buff than into the minion itself. So you're going even more all in with this.
Yeah, and this is like kind of the thing that, which is why the tier list is going to be adjusted. So a lot of like the really large minions with the high mana cost are going to drop like quite significantly, and the like 1 mana stuff is going to get buffed quite significantly, and it's because a card being a dead card in your hand really is pretty bad, and when you have like a 6-7 mana card, that's going to happen a lot. So you really have a much more flexible hand if you have smaller cards, and the more like choices and things that you can do, the better it is if you're a good player. Remember, the people who make the decisions get to like their skill matters more than the people who don't make the decisions. That seems like a really obvious point, but you make more decisions when you have smaller cards than when you have bigger cards. And so, if you want to maximize your skill impact on the game relative to your opponent's skill impact on the game, if you want to be more then you want to be more active, and you want the smaller cards. And also, of course, a lot of times, like, you get to turn 7 or turn 8, and you can play these cards, but you don't, because it's like a 7 mana 7/7, and if you play it, you'll be dead, because your opponents will just overrun you. So there's like a lot of, like, the more I think about, and I look at, and I experience these large cards that were pretty dominant in the OG meta, the more they suck for a regular meta against someone who knows what they're doing. And the more you should not rely on them in this kind of meta. They're not like worthless, right? Like, depends on what your other choices are. You'll still take big cards. You know, if it's like a Bot Creeper or a Stormwind Champ, yeah, it's 7 mana, but they're like so good. But your normal middle, like Dracula Crusher, right? That's like an example of a card that I'm like less and less in favor of. Like, Captured Your Mongar. I don't know how much that's dropping, but it's dropping by a lot, because that's not a card that works in this meta.
We talked about this for a little while before the Lightforge. Really, just it goes back to what we were talking about at the start of the podcast, where big stuff that don't do anything when it comes out, it's pretty dangerous.
Like, how many attacks does your Mongar have? 1. How many attacks would taking that 7 mana and dropping a Yeti and a Spider Tank have? 2. There, you're winning already, right? Like, stats and everything else aside. You're just like, besides the fact that, you know, those cards can be played way earlier and on curve and off curve and be like, you know, spliced into other mana costs, just in terms of like being able to do stuff on the board, playing 2 cards lets you do 1 extra stuff than playing 1 card. And it's like that every turn those cards stay alive compared to your big card.
Right. And obviously, look, it's not a total negative, right? There is a reason why people still pick your Mongars, because of its size, because of the fact that it can potentially
it's
2
like,
for 1.
It feels like it feels like desperate size, right? Like, yeah, 2 for 1s, but like you're giving up so much to get that 2 for 1. This is not like Azure Drake 2 for 1, you know? Like, this is, you're giving up so much to get that 2 for 1. And when I say so much, I don't even mean like on the board or like it's a dead card for longer. I mean like you're taking a lot of face damage. And remember, in this game, I really feel like in Karazhan, face damage matters a lot. Like, healing matters a lot. Just in my games that I'm playing against people, I feel like half the time they're trying to hit my face. Because they, like, the good players always try to hit your face, and the good players realize that, like, hitting your face works in this meta. So you're just, like, especially at around, like, 8 wins and above, your face is going to get hit a lot no matter how fast you're trying to go. And you just, like, Captured Your Mongar is like a dead card, even when you get to the mana cost where you can play it. Because you play it, and your opponent hits your face for 8 damage. And then you kill 1 thing, your opponent puts out 2 more things, and your face gets hit even more, and you're just dead.
You know, it's a dangerous statement to make, saying the best players go face, and then ending at that.
The best players go face, that's what I'm saying. The best players go face in this meta. And if you want to be a better player, you should go face more. I don't think it's dangerous. I think this is how it's supposed to be when the meta comes like this. Like, you know those charging things, like Argent Commander or like Reckless Rocketeer?
I've seen them. I've used them.
I think it's okay to just throw them at your opponent's face, like rather than use them as removals. in this kind of meta. Like less so for like like a Wolf Rider or something against a mage, right? Because then it just gets pinked and it's pretty bad. But if you're a Wolf Rider against like let's say a Warlock, go for it. Hit the Warlock's face. Don't hit like something on the board. Why would you do that unless it's a really good trade?
Right.
If it has like a 5/3, fine, remove it.
7/3 and a 1/1. You're like, all right, Wolf Rider to the face.
Because you know what 3/1 into the 7/3 doesn't get you?
Face damage?
3 face damage. You don't get that. Like.
Oh well, what if it was a 7/3 Wrathguard?
Oh well, then your choice is made for you. That's why Wrathguard is so low, by the way. If you guys are wondering why we like bump Wrathguard down so much, it's because it's hurting you. We're gonna bump Wrathguard up a little bit in the next one. I screwed up on the math, but it's still gonna be bad. Like it's not.
Right.
I think we have it at like a 38 or something just ridiculous for a 2-drop. But it's because I screwed up on the math a little, but not that much. It's still gonna be crap. You're gonna still look at it at a succubus, and you're gonna be like, eh. Whereas before you looked at it in a succubus, and you're like, oh yeah, definitely the Wrathguard is okay. But your face is gonna get pressured more, and the Wrathguard it's awful. Not even because it's gonna take 3 damage. It's like when you have like a 5/5 and it kills the Wrathguard or something, right? And it deals 5 extra damage. Like that's a huge swing. That's like 2.5 cards for the Warlock. Anyway, let's go back to this whole next wing Karazhan thing. I want to talk about this card. It's a priest card. It's coming out in the next wing, and it's called Purify. It doesn't matter because it's not going to be in the game. But what this does mean is you now have double the offering bonus for Feast of the Priest. Even without the offering bonus, it like doubles immediately. Yeah. So priest got better, like just in the next wing, and they're gonna get better again once the final wing comes out. They actually have an offering bonus to Priest of the Feast. So just something to keep in mind. Don't think that this next wing doesn't have anything for the priest at all. It just makes Priest of the Feast more and more and more.
It's addition by subtraction.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
All right, let's look at another. Let's just go through the common cards. We have 2 more common cards. One is a Avian Watcher. I'll just start there. It's a 5 mana 3/6. If you control a secret, gain +1/+1 at taunt. It's bad, but it's not that bad. Mostly because 3/6s are not that bad.
3/6s aren't that bad. Look, it's a Fen Creeper without the taunt, right?
Mm-hmm. Like you think 3/6s are really bad, but they're like kind of okay.
Yeah, the important thing is almost nothing on turn 5 has 6 attack.
Yep.
So it always requires something a little bit extra to hit into the Avian Watcher, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and if you do control secret, it's really freaking good because it's like a super Druid of the Claw. But it's not a good card.
Yeah. Oh, and if you're wondering, like, if you happen to like have a slow deck and you couldn't curve out and you couldn't get whatever, these are the cards you want. You want these high defense, low attack kind of cards. Because if your opponent doesn't trade into these, you'll get a lot of value out of them, removing all their small stuff little by little. So you have incentivizes your opponent to trade into these, in which they'll only lose one small thing and then damage their big thing. And you may think, well, that's not good. I just traded a 5 mana card for like a 2 mana card and a little damage on a 4 mana card. That's like a bad trade. But you've also just saved like 6-7 damage to the face. And that's going to matter a lot. Because remember, if you're playing slow, your opponent's on the board and you're not, presumably it means you have more cards coming up later. So the less you die, the more chances you have of winning.
Pretty good.
General rule too. The less you die, the more your chance to win goes up. But yeah, you want these. You want these 3/6s.
You don't want to die very often. Good insight.
Runic Egg.
Runic Egg. It is a 1 mana 0/2 common neutral card with Death Rattle of draw a card. So play this. You get on the board. You have something to buff. That's about it. That's what it offers you. That's what Runic
Such a
Egg
good card.
offers you.
Such a good card.
I said it when we first saw this card as well. I love the design of this thing.
Yeah.
I think this is such a cool design because it changes sort of the it changes the math slightly. And I remember a previous conversation too, where you're like, no, 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 I always kill this. I like always kill this,
Yeah.
right? But I don't think it's an always kill in the same way that like Nerubian egg is almost an always like unless you have stuff
It's like a
to
never kill.
yeah, you never kill, or
Yeah.
you're so far ahead that you're like, okay, I'll just remove it, right? But you need at least 6 attack, like separately, to take care of a Nerubian egg. Runic egg, anything can kill this, right? A 1-drop can kill it. But then you have to make decisions like, man, do I want to give him something to buff on the board, or do I want him to have an extra
The only
card?
reason I can see to not kill this is if you really need that face damage.
Yeah.
Then I can see leaving it on there, but that's it. I don't really care about him having a card. Yeah, it's
Right.
bad if he has a card, but you leave that on there. He gets like extra tempo. That's like always worse.
Yeah, tempo is usually much more of that. Like the fact that you need to wait a turn for like 95% of the minions in this game makes it so that like initiative and board presence is so important, right? But this card, and I do agree, you usually get rid of it, but I think it's not, far from 100%. So
yeah, like I can see something like leave it around for like if they play it on turn 1, right? I may not get rid of it till like turn 4 or something, right? Like whenever I get like really scared of like the buffs, because like you shatter sun it, who really cares, right?
Yeah. It turns into a pantry spider. Sorry, half of a pantry spider.
One of the 2 pantry spiders that you would normally get.
Spiders.
Yeah, and you've blown the Shatter Sun buff, right? Like it doesn't really matter that much. It's when you get to stuff like Dark Iron, Blessing of Kings, like that kind of stuff that you're like, oh, I don't want that to happen. So I do think you do keep it alive a couple turns if it comes out early, or if you have a read that they don't have a buff.
Right.
But yeah. So that's Runic Egg. Like, it's good. I think you're going to be surprised how high we rate it. Mostly because it's just, like, you get the card back, so you don't lose a card. And the card you get back is going to be of average value. So, right? Like, if the cards you get back is of average value, and this card's obviously below average, right? Like, there's no doubt about that. It's kind of, like, limited in how low it can go. Because to take another card over it of even lower value, you're just losing out compared to this. Not even considering any of the good things of it, right? Which is it's still a minion on the board, you can buff it or whatever. Just like if it's a 1 mana, like, just cycle, it would be amazing, right?
Right.
This
Cycles
is worse than
that offer you something a little bit extra are always pretty good, right? For example, some sort of cycles offer you flexibility, like Raven Idol, right? This one offers you board presence instead, which is fine. Like Novice Engineer offers you a 1/1. These things are always going to be pretty good in the arena just because, like, getting more cards and sort of winning that way is good. And also you need to get on the board. Like a card that does sort of offers you 2 sort of pathways to success are always going to be better than something that goes all in on like one big thing. So,
Yep. All right. Okay, let's go with the class cards. Let's start with the stupid one. Nightbane Templar is a 3 mana 2/3 paladin common because Blizzard hates paladins. It has a battle cry that says if you're holding a dragon, summon 2 1/1 whelps, which means it has no battle cry. So it's a 3 mana 2/3, and those suck. That's it. Next card is going to be a lot better. A Menagerie Warden. 6 mana 5/5, Druid common. Battlecry, choose a friendly beast, summon a copy of it.
The dream Stranglethorn Tiger into triple Stranglethorn Tiger. I mean that's the dream for everyone, right? Tiger, they can't do anything unless they like spell power, flame cannon, or sabotage it or something. Deadly shot. But so this card, like, they gave it to Druid. Druid is definitively the beast class. Sorry, hunters, you just don't do enough with beasts anymore.
They really don't.
They really don't. Yeah.
Rexar's lost it.
My gosh, you don't pay attention to beasts for a few expansions, and those beasts, man, they wander and they find a new home with the Druid. It's a sad story. It really is. But Menagerie Warden. So how? I've seen different opinions. Some people think this is a ridiculous card, right? This is not a ridiculous card. Like, we're not rating a ridiculous card. You know, the scenario that I've just illustrated is pretty much the best case scenario. But if you take a look at sort of what it's going to summon, like, there's high highs, but people know already. Like, nothing changes with Druid. You always remove Beast with Druid, right? So people are always going to be removing Beast with Druid, and you're not going to get like super value out of it most of the time. Like, would you rather have this or would you rather have a Faceless Summoner? It's going to be a Faceless Summoner.
Well, a Faceless Summoner is 1 mana cheaper.
No, it's not.
Oh, a Faceless Summoner. I thought you were talking about a Faceless Manipulator. Yeah, a Faceless Summoner is much better.
No, why would I compare it to a Faceless Manipulator?
I don't know. It was weird to me too.
Yeah.
So it was much better. I agree.
I was like, dude, Blizzard did not make a 5-mana 5/5 that also summons a random 3-cost minion. They're just gonna be like, yeah, we're just gonna give it basic vanilla stats, and no one wants a random 3-cost minion, so we're just gonna toss that in. No.
Okay. Yeah. Menagerie Warden. It's good. It's gonna be a playable card. I wouldn't take it.
It's gonna be.
I wouldn't take it over a 2-drop, but it's definitely doable. You'll get some value out of it. All right. What else? 3 more class cards. Let's go to the Babbling Book, which is the rare mage card that caused a lot of controversy because it was rare, not common. It is a 1 mana 1/1. Add a random mage spell to your hand. It's good. I don't know what else to really say about it. It's like very good even, but it's not premium, right? It's web spinner for mages. The thing with random cards is that they're actually really bad. Like, a random mage spell is a lot worse than a card from your deck. Like, I know people think about it as, oh, I'm just getting a card. You're not really getting a card. You're getting a random mage spell. You don't want a random mage spell. You want a card from your deck because you've already selected for the cards in your deck. A random mage spell has not been selected for. There are a lot of crappy mage spells. There are really good mage spells too, but there are also really crappy mage spells. So you're subjecting yourself to like even more like wider RNG.
Yeah. You want to look at the layers of selection that you've had, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, something like tracking, that's 2 layers of selection, right? Yeah. You've selected your deck out of, each card has been selected out of 3 options. And then for tracking, you're selecting 1 option out of those 3 options that you've already selected for. That's a double sort of selection. For something like Novice Engineer, right, that's a single layer of selection because of the draft. For Babbling Book, this is something in which, you could just get a Shatter, right? Shatter is probably the worst case scenario, but mages have really powerful spells, and then they have a lot of just pretty bad spells, like, for example, Ice Barrier or Ice Block, those secrets that are clunky to play and don't really do much in the arena. So it's going to be great. You get to temple out a 1/1, and for 1 mana, you're not doing that much anyways with it. So it's going to be a good card, but you are going to run into those situations where you kind of just get a dead card, and it doesn't really help you further your game plan.
Yep. And you still spent a mana on it. And a 1 mana 1/1 is not that bad. We're gonna. No. This is gonna be like a theme that's going to be very apparent when the tier list gets updated. 1 mana 1/1s are okay. They are good tempo, and by good tempo, I mean like normal kind of tempo. If you're not playing like fully on curve, like at the point in which you're just like throwing cards on the board, that's not like Mech Warper, Yeti, Pit Fighter, Boulder Fist Ogre. Like, when you stop doing that and you just start doing other stuff, it's just an extra tempo on the board for 1 mana. It's totally normal. Okay. Cat Trick. After your opponent, it's a 2 mana secret for Hunter. After your opponent casts a spell, summon a 4/2 Panther with Stealth. So, 4/2 Panther with Stealth, kind of like a 3/3 Bear with Taunt. Their cards, they get summoned. They're worth 3 mana if you summon them. They're worth 2 mana if your opponent has to do something to trigger it. the thing your opponent has to do is something they probably won't be doing that often, like playing spells or hitting your face. So it gets like delayed by a lot, and that's where its value is.
But the cat is wearing the hat afterwards.
Yes. The cat is wearing the hat afterwards. The picture for Cat Trick is a cat coming out of a hat. And the picture for the panther is the cat wearing a hat. Probably the hat that he came out of.
Probably.
The hat would have shrunk a lot, but we don't worry about details like that. So that's Cat Trick. It's not much to talk about. If you think it's a really good card, you're wrong. If you think it's a totally unplayable card, you're closer to being right, but still probably wrong. It's like just bad, but like sort of playable.
Sort of playable. Okay, if there was just one it's like when your opponent casts a spell, summon a Panther with Stealth, then this would be like the worst card ever, because they would just like consecrate or flame strike this, and it would just sweep this off the board at the same time. It's like the cat would pop out just to get consecrated. So it is a good thing that it happens after your opponent casts a spell, but it doesn't make it that much better, because you're not getting super value, right? If you look at something like Freezing Trap, that's like a super value card, right? Sorry, value might be a bad word to use, because we can use value in other ways, but that's a super swing card, right? For this, it's like, haha, I got a 4/2 for 2 mana late in the game. It doesn't really do much. So, like I said, it'll influence your checklist, and it won't do anything else. That's it.
All right, let's get to the best card ever. In this wing, the biggest impact, technically speaking, it's not really going to be the biggest impact because there's not that many warrior players. But this is the best card in the entire Karazhan, and it is the best card by far. There is nothing that touches this card in terms of goodness in Karazhan. Not even the legendaries. This is just the best card. It is Fool's Bane. It is a 5 mana 3/4 weapon that cannot hit face, but has unlimited number of attacks otherwise on any turn. Yep. So mega Wind Fury, but can't hit face. And that means it could deal, 6 damage, 9 damage, 12 damage on turn 5. We're saying, right? Like, you can't stop board. There are no board clears anymore, right? There are no taunts. You can't stop minions on the board. Well, this one stops everything. There is no way in which a warrior can play this card and then not have the board.
Yeah. And it just becomes a sort of life management, right? Or resource management. You can still call it resource management because your health is always a resource. With Fool's Bane, it really, the best part about this card is sort of what we talked about in the beginning, which is just you can predict it, but how do you play around it, right? Because look, the warrior can take some extra face damage, but that's fine. The warrior goes down to 15, but if he's got the board and he still has 2 more uses of this weapon or something, then he's probably going to win, because it's going back to that tempo meta. So this is I don't know, this is just a super premium card. You can still put pressure on the warrior's face, but man, that warrior is going to get sick value off of this thing.
Yep. Sick value. It's just, you look at the card and it seems broken, and it is broken. That's all there is to this. But then you look at a lot of the other cards warriors have gotten lately, and they're all kind of broken. And it hasn't really made the warrior that good. It just kind of prevents it from being like god awful. So here's one more card to help the warrior not be god awful. And it is a card, unlike the others, that really uses its hero power, right? Because once you use this card, you will want to be using that hero power. That hero power button will be pushed very, very frequently after putting this card out. Because otherwise, you're going to die. And you don't win when you die. We keep going back to this point. The less you die, the more you win.
Yep, definitely.
So that's Fool's Bane. All right. Well, that's all for the next wing. There's not that many cards. There's not that many interesting cards either. The last wing is going to be a little more interesting, as far as at least I think the last wing is going to be a little more interesting. But we are edging closer to the final wing, and to whatever. Like, what I'm sad about still is that there's no impact. None of these cards have impact, not because you don't see them. There are no Karazhan cards in Karazhan.
Nope. It's always weird because it's an adventure too, right? So the cards are already, not a lot of cards are getting released. And with the lack of offering bonus, it just feels weird. It feels empty.
Yeah.
Like the arena just feels kind of empty right now.
Yeah.
And I think with the offering bonus, it'll be nice. But is it wrong that I'm already thinking like, man, I can't wait for the next expansion in which we're gonna have hopefully like a 120 card expansion with actual card packs and everything.
Well, it's about right. Because in OG, we started waiting for the next expansion like 2 weeks after release. So now we're doing this 2 weeks before the end of the release because it's just an adventure, and just like OG, they didn't do anything with it. So they need to step up their creativity game.
They need a new mechanic. When they put out Inspire, I thought that was very, really cool.
Yeah.
But I can understand. They introduced standard, and then they did all of this stuff. But man, and with the adventure, you can't really put out a new mechanic because it's too. Like, you just don't have enough impact in the limited amount of cards. But yeah,
Discover.
yeah, Discover, woohoo!
But
It's
that's what I
something.
mean, right? There's not even a Discover here.
Yeah, no, there's nothing here.
This is
There's,
the weakest expansion since Nax.
This is the Beast Dragon Murloc
Right?
direction.
Like, what the hell? All right. Well, the class talk is what we're going to end on. We're doing Arena Coupe after this, as usual. But did you guys know that this is going to be Arena Coupe number 100?
Wow.
We have done 100 Arena Coupes. Actually,
crazy.
like, yeah. It's a warrior, and this is the warrior right before Fool's Bane. It's to throw off all of our opponents who don't expect to see a warrior right now. They're like, oh, all the warrior players will wait until Fool's Bane is out, right? They can't be that stupid. But no, we're going to play a warrior right now.
We're that stupid. Got you.
So, how is the warrior working in this meta? Well, if in a normal class you want as many 2s as you can get and some 1s and some like other stuff and not big cards, then as a warrior, that same thing is true but like times 20. Because if they're pressuring your face, you can't even use your weapons, which are your removals. So to whatever extent you get removals, you can't even use them unless you have the board and you are protecting your face. And they're going to be aggressive out on the board, or they're going to lose anyway. So as the warrior, you are literally picking every 2-drop. And not 2-drops. Like 1/3s on turn 2, 1/4s, totally good. 2/2s, take them. You're taking some 1-mana cards, 2/1s, perfect. 1/2s, you can think about it. Like, that's the kind of stuff you need to do as the warrior. Because if you don't, you're going to lose. And those weapons, they're going to swing towards the face again. They weren't in OG. In OG, they were always hitting the board. But now they're free again to swing for the face. And it's going to make a difference.
Yep.
That's a brief summary of the warrior. It just kind of pushes what we normally do in the Karazhan meta to like new levels. But no, Fool's Bane is going to make this class so much better. There's Protect the King, which I really like. But that's just me.
Most people are a little bit hesitant about it, and I'm in the most people category.
Okay, look, you hit the face. They have a bunch of stuff out. You play Protect the King. You still hit face. You keep hitting face, and then they're dead. People are thinking about it like, oh, card advantage. Oh, things are not going to die. You don't need them to die. You just need them to like not be clearing your board for a little bit.
Okay, we'll see how it works.
All right. I mean, I treat it as a 3-mana Pyroblast that's vulnerable to board clears. That's what I treat it as. It seems weird. Well, and taunts, right? It's vulnerable to board clears and taunts, so it's not as good as a Pyroblast. And we don't rate it as high as we rate a Pyroblast. And it's also only 3 mana, not 10, which makes it better. But that's how I look at it. Because that's what its purpose is going to be, like, more than half the time. Everyone else is still in the mindset of like, oh, I'm playing the board. I am a Hearthstone Arena player. And, whether it's OG or wherever, I'm going to keep trading on the board like it's classic. It's not anymore. We're back in the wild west of pre-OG meta, where you're hitting the face as often as you're trading.
I don't know if that was the best analogy. That's like saying it's like, hey, it's like I'm basically just like Brad Pitt, except worse looking, and I haven't made any movies.
Not a false statement. So I
But
think
see, just like how my analogy doesn't get you anywhere, I don't think your analogy gets you anywhere either.
well, we'll see. We'll take a Protect the King this run on Arena Coupe 100, and you'll see the power. You'll see the power of Unleash the King.
I look forward to.
I mean, Protect the King, not Unleash the King. I don't know what Unleash the King is gonna be like.
So good.
Okay. That's it from us. We'll see you again next week to give you the preview of Wing 4 and kind of another rundown of the developing meta in Karazhan. As usual, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. See you guys.